at the center, the Istanbul Center, what we're trying to do is develop tools. We know, late last year after the SDGs were created, the PricewaterhouseCoopers did a research all over the world, and 92% of companies knew of the SDGs. When only 31% of the general population knows about the SDGs. So there's a much more penetration of the SDGs in the business community than on the general population. 72 saw an opportunity, a business opportunity on the SDGs. You have, SDGs there on infrastructure, on energy, is no longer the traditional social agenda. But only 13% knew how, what, how do I do this? And that is where we at United Nations are, in the center that I have the honor to lead, that we are working on. We are trying to provide the tools that will allow companies to measure their own levels of inclusiveness, for example, and progress on a maturity level that says, okay, I can see how I become and I change and adapt my business models. We have documented more than 400 case studies of companies that have been able to do and change their business models. We are working with Türk, Telekom and many other companies around the world to do this. However, companies can't do this alone. There has to be a change in policy as well. There has to be a change in the enabling environment that allows companies to make this transformation of their business models. The traditional policy environment for private sector is no longer sufficient. So that's why, for example, we have been working started under the Turkey presidency of the G20, and now under the Chinese and under the German next year. We've been working on the whole policy set of instruments that allow for the governments to understand what their role is to make this type of business model go to scale. We are working with the government of Kuwait to support it, to try to answer Dr. Khalid's questions. How do we connect and how do we find a common language and a common set of tools with the private sector? So for us at the United Nations, it's pretty clear that the word indeed belongs to the business, but not to the traditional business of the 20th century, but to a different business that values profitability, commercial viability equally to social inclusiveness, not because it's good, but because it's good for money. Do you know the size of the so-called base of the pyramid, which is half of the world's population? It's a $5 trillion market waiting to be tapped, waiting to be brought back into the inclusive growth and the inclusive economy. So I'll stop here and let others see, but we are very much in line with this, and I think the United Nations has come a long way from the time you interact with Kofi Annan to where we are now.
I must say I agree, and you have provoked me, and I didn't want to say this, and this is not a commercial. Because we have been able to convert our organization into a knowledge organization, we have been able to become, coming from this region of the world, from a small base, to become the largest company in the world in the business of protecting intellectual property. We are the world leader simply because we built an organization which is ICT-based in everything. So that proves that you can make it if you use the enabler. ICT is an enabler. It enables you to do anything, and it enables us to become number one. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sherif Kaynar. For the past 20 years, I've been working for attracting and retaining talent for private sector companies. So I will start my speech with a pessimistic note and end my speech with an optimistic note. The pessimistic note, really, since the 2008 financial crisis, the world has not recovered from that crisis. With the Lehman Brothers and Bernard Stearns, billions of dollars evaporated, and since that time, we are still in a crisis mode. This crisis shows its effect sometimes as wars, as injustices, as other models, you know. But most companies in the world are having turbulent times. And we in Turkey, we are also passing through some turbulent times. And like my colleague from the United Nations mentioned, the different model approach would have been much faster if this crisis was not happening as deep as it is. Now, this was the beginning. There is a similar organization to this one called World Economic Forum. The creator of that forum, Klaus Schwab, when he was opening the Davos conference this year in January, he started with this sentence: "The future of companies and countries will no longer depend on their natural resources, but in the future it will depend on their talent that they will attract to the people, you know, on retaining talent." So, like British football clubs, now it's full of imported talents. The world market of talent is an international pool. The world becomes a small village. When a Spanish telecom company is looking for a CEO, they are not looking only in Spain, they are looking worldwide to attract the best talent for their corporations. And because I've been doing this job, and I'm very, very pleased to tell to this audience, in Turkey, over the 50 years, the private sector has invested heavily in educating the talent, and we have now a good educated talent in many sectors, in many fields. And some Turkish talent has been also exported to some other countries. Now, having said this, I'm coming to the optimistic part of my speech. Everybody knows by 2020, the 65 to 70% of the world output will be from the emerging markets. And if you look to the West, the number of, I just read it in the cover of the CEO, only in Britain, only 14% of the CEOs have an exposure to the emerging markets. The area of emerging markets, although they are having turbulent times, it is the single most promising future area of growth. So if we do adopt sustainable development goals, and I totally agree with my colleagues that the idea, there are some companies like Microsoft, Schneider, Siemens, they receive the best CVs from worldwide. Not because they pay the highest money. Probably they pay even below average money. Because they care about their people. And also, they sell to these talented people something more than what the company does. And it is a total stakeholder management, from the suppliers to the shareholders, to the customers, to the products. It is a whole thing. This sustainability is not on a single idea, it's a total concept in the spirit of the company. And the companies which will manage this sustainability concept will be the winners in the future, and they will prosper. So my ending remark is the following. Emerging markets is a great potential. We are all in emerging area, all of us. And if we have this sustainable goals for our companies, we have a great place to go. Thank you.
I took over the moderation, and my colleague wants us to end. But before I end, this is the preface of the moderation, I want to give 1 minute to the two of you in terms of, you know, if there's one thing, one inspiration for your company and for your government in taking the SDGs forward, what would that be? In 1 minute.
I don't know what I can say in 1 minute, buddy, but I think companies have to do, what they have to do in the end. This is the reality of it, because it depends what type of company you are, to be fair, I mean, it's easier for, let's say, a telecom company to support the things we are doing, but if you are a construction company, there's something you can do, and, so therefore, what I don't like about this discussion when we overemphasize knowledge, it is such a small part of practitioners, which is a fake way of presenting the world, I think. Most of us are not actually in that world, but we use it. So that's why I prefer not to say anymore.
I can't agree less with you, sir. You are absolutely right. Now, if we look at it from the knowledge-based economy or a knowledge economy perspective, now, we have to bear in mind that even if we are looking at the fourth industrial revolution as being knowledge, the third revolution used to be what they say the industrial revolution based on, let's say, oil. But it doesn't mean that the 7 billion people around the world are using oil. Still, there are people who never even need it. The question is of knowledge that take us only to square one, which is the basis of any civilization, which I call not the human resource, the human capital. And improving the human capital, it is challenging because it requires a multi-dimensional aspects, even in our national planning. From a local perspective, we find the human capital is the most challenging pillar in any national plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll leave you with one thought. And allow me to represent the voices of the people that have no voices, the poorest members of community. Uber, Airbnb do nothing to the poor because the poor does not have an extra car or an extra room. So technology is very important, but where we put the technology has to be, as the President of Turkey told today, in people. Thank you very much.
We would like to give our sincere thanks to our moderator and our panelists. May I please kindly invite Professor Dr. Kerem Alkan, President of the Executive Board International Cooperation Platform, to present the plug of honor to our panelists and moderator. Professor Dr. Kerem Alkan, the President of the Executive Board International Cooperation Platform, is presenting the plug of honor to our panelists and our moderator. Once again, thank you very much to our panelists and our moderators for inclusive business models for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.